sex, how to have a sex life that is both reassuring for husband and wife.
Okay, here's what I know. These are conversations you never think you're going to have. You never think, oh, I'll probably be talking one day with my daughter-in-law about sex. The truth is, we have forgotten how to value the things that are the most important, because you can have a guy that's really good looking, and if he is not godly, if he doesn't have integrity, if he is not a good provider, if he is combative or abusive or addicted, this is going to end up being a problem really quick. I remember I've had so many young girls say, oh, how did you end up with John? And I said, well, I always went for the wrong guys. I always went for the wrong guys because I was looking for a finished product that looked good. But John had things that you can't teach people. Now, he was colorblind, so that meant he dressed really goofy, but he had integrity. And we've seen a lot of people, Christian, they started out their marriage in love for life, and then they ended up broken because for some of them, they had patterns and issues they had brought into their marriage that they thought marriage was going to fix. Marriage doesn't fix it. It actually exasperates it. And so there was some different challenges. So I just want to say, single women, you are so much smarter than I was because I picked the right husband by accident. I was thinking about this, Christian, we have a ridiculous amount of sexualization in our culture right now, and yet we have a famine of intimacy. And I think what's happened is we forgot what intimacy was. We've become all about sex and gratification instead of longing and a delayed desire and, just actually developing a response to somebody else. It's all about us. And, John and I have been married for 40 years. And I will say this, even though it's possibly troubling to my children to hear this, I would say that John and I actually enjoy our sex life more now in year 40 than we did in year 1 through 4. And that's not because we look better, because it's not what you look like. It's about knowing one another and loving one another and caring for one another and actually developing a legacy of intimacy. And, it's kind of crazy because our culture says, take it now, grab everything, spend it while you're young. And that basically when you're older, John are 60, I'm 62, he's 63. I always have to remember people. Christian, when I was young, I didn't think people in their 60s had sex. And that was so, again, I do. And here I am talking to complete your young friends about 60-year-old sex. So we have to actually understand that intimacy is actually what we're longing for. Mm-hmm. And in intimacy, you'll also find pleasure. But intimacy means that you actually get to know somebody more. And, one of the questions I saw that came up was, how do you keep it so that it isn't familiar? Well, all right. So I have a theory on this. When my kids were little, it's going to look like I'm off topic, but I promise I'm not. When you're experiencing breastfeeding, yes, Chris, beautiful little boy. So when you're breastfeeding, there comes a moment where you decide it's time to introduce food. Mm-hmm. But you can't introduce food to a baby until you're willing to give it to them on a regular basis. And so the truth is, a breastfeeding baby can be in a restaurant and smell food and just do great. They're like, my mom's here. They're not thinking, I have to have this pizza because they've never tasted pizza. And sexual intimacy is meant to be introduced to somebody when it is the right time. And then it's supposed to actually continue to happen. It's not supposed to be start, stop, start, stop. It's supposed to be something that you awaken. And so the Bible describes it as do not arouse or awaken love before it's time. So it's about an introduction of something. And what has happened in the church is we've gone to a fear counseling. And fear's a horrible counselor where we're like, don't have sex. Sex is wrong. Don't have sex. Sex is wrong. But the Bible never says sex is wrong. It says, do not arouse or awaken love before it's time. So what it's saying isn't that it's wrong. It's saying it's not time. Right. And so I'm a big believer in the right thing at the right time is the right, becomes right. You can have the right thing at the wrong time and it becomes wrong. And as somebody who did not learn those things, you find out that if you awaken in the realm of lust demands. But if you awaken it in the realm of intimacy and love, it gives. And so I think a lot of times also women want their husband to just magically know what they want. And they feel maybe nervous about having that conversation or saying, hey, I don't like this or I do like that. Or, the truth is, I know that nowadays people think everybody has sex all the time before they're married. But I've talked to so many couples that had sex before they were married. And then once they got married, because they'd awakened in the realm of lust, they stopped enjoying it as much. Once it wasn't illegal, forbidden, naughty, and now all of a sudden, I don't know, have you had any friends that had that conversation?
Yeah, definitely. Or at least they don't enjoy the benefit that I've seen Arden and I have. Because what you're saying of it is this intimacy that's not only pleasure derived, like the amount of times this is so fun talking about your mother-in-law, we laugh and it's not the, hot and heavy. Like that's not what I expected my marriage sex to be like, but it is so much more unifying and you walk away feeling better.
Because once you've taken that, then it becomes a problem. Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought up, it's like not always how the TV show it or the movie show, which is also such a violation, which creates this constant comparison, constant everybody else is having better sex than me, everybody else is having more sex than me, everybody knows what they're doing more than me. Everybody is saying, I should have self-sex. It's just
all to learn. There is a common theory that how can you get married if you don't test drive the car? I think is the analogy.
Yeah.
And
when I was growing up, it was kind of like, why buy the cow if you're going to get the milk free? So that's showing how much everything has changed now.
And I'll probably shift again in 10 years. Who knows? But no, I have seen that. And I have had friends that even they awoke in it and then they came to Christ and realized it was wrong, dated for a lengthy amount of time, but gave that back to God and were restored and do enjoy their sex life now lately. So
absolutely.
It's like the heart washer along with that timing. If anyone's like, wait a minute.
No, I'm that person that definitely did not understand the value of it and that had to work really hard to get it back into the right perspective. And I don't want that for other people. I want sex to be something that they enjoy, that they, celebrate. And, John and I remember having young kids. You have a baby. And I remember just thinking, all I want to do is sleep. I love you, but I just want to sleep. And yet it becomes this really difficult time because the husband feels displaced by a baby. And then he feels guilty because he's kind of like, I love my baby, but I love my wife. And I feel like I lost my wife to my baby that I love, but where's my, and it's a seasonal thing. And I think as women, we do well to just kind of remind our husbands, I love you. I would love to be with you. I'm just really tired right now. And so we kind of had the 5-minute rule at our house, which went like this. Listen, I will give this the 5-minute try. Like you try to get me in the mood for 5 minutes. And if you can get me in the mood, you can have me. And that was just kind of our thing. So at least I was trying to cooperate. And, the truth is, guys sometimes will go through seasons where they have more of a sex drive than the wife, and the wife has less. And there'll be times that the wife has more of a sex drive, and the man has less.
Drive, not
life. Yes, exactly. And so we have to actually understand and have a sensitivity to each other. And sometimes, women forget that the guys kind of, they kind of feel like, oh, well, sex is love. And women feel like understanding, conversation, cuddling, that's love. And it's not that the women are right and the guys are right. It's that both people are right and both people have a part in that.
Yeah. And different appetites.
Yes.
I feel as well.
Yeah.
Well, this is all very great. I feel like we can keep going on the subject, but it reminds me of another question that we had, and someone's saying, okay, you have your sex life with your partner, but what about when problems arise, trust is broken, specifically in the correlation, they start watching pornography, or there has been a trust level broken. They want to restore a marriage that lasts, but there's huge hurdles to go through.
Yeah.
Specifically in that realm, I mean, what would your advice be? Maybe specifically, we'll start with the porn question.
Yeah. Well, the porn question was something that John and I navigated early on in our marriage. And I just want to say this to any woman whose husband is addicted to porn. And I hope you know this, but I want you to hear it. This is not your fault. This is not because you're not enough. This is not because you're not sexy enough. Your body's not, voluptuous enough, or you just had a baby. You're not this was something that he already brought as a problem into your marriage and thought that marriage would fix. Now, having said that, it is insidious. Pornography is so addictive. They say it's as addictive as some drug use. So I know. So as someone who's addicted to espresso, now I can't even imagine being addicted to drugs and then being addicted to porn that actually gives you all those same endorphins. So what happens is when a man is addicted to pornography, the woman feels violated, cheated on, and compared. And all of those things are true. And so I feel like it's something that the wife should not have to navigate for the husband. I feel like the husband needs to actually want help, take responsibility, get with a guy friend. I know that I've watched my sons be friends to different married men who thought, oh, I'll get married and then I won't have this anymore. I've watched my sons walk alongside these men, and I've seen it work. But, the guy has to realize what he's actually doing to his wife, that he is like basically stabbing her in the heart. Now, one other thing is when you get married, I wish I could just say it's his problem. When you get married, his problems become your problems. Like when John married me, I had college debt and he inherited my college debt. So when you get married, you actually need to fight those problems together because that is an attack on your marriage. It's not just an attack on your husband. It's an attack on your marriage. And so you want to be vigilant alongside your husband. You have every right to ask questions. You have every right to decide what you're looking, what you're willing to do. Like if you're like, hey, we're sleeping in different bedrooms, or I'm great with giving you affection, but I'm uncomfortable being intimate with you. I know when John went through it, I was like, I would say in some ways I mishandled it. In some ways I handled it well. I had such a sense that something wasn't right. And I didn't know what it was, Christian. And finally I realized he was looking at porn, and I confronted him. And he admitted it. It was nowhere near as readily available as it was now. And of course that had gotten entrenched with porn and masturbation. And then of course I would feel this something like a shadow between us. And then I didn't want him to touch me. So I was repulsed. I think what I could have done better is I should have been, rather than just completely rejecting him, I should have been affectionate, but not sexual with him. It draws some boundaries. I remember John and I didn't have sex for, I think, 7 or 8 months after I had Addison, because there was just it was an opportunity for John to get some things sorted out in his life. He fasted, he prayed, he wanted free, he went to people, he found people to be accountable to, and he broke the cycle. I do know there's a lot of great resources right now, but again, this is insidious. We have a discipleship app, and the number one thing searched on our discipleship app is how to get free from porn. Not about ministry, not about reading Bibles, not even about women preaching or mentoring, nothing. how to get free from porn. So it's huge. And, if somebody wants to use that as a resource, they definitely have that. But again, it's not your fault. It will be something that you should fight together. And I don't think that you should be your husband's accountability. I think it's just way too hard. You can hold him accountable, but he needs to have someone outside as well.
Because as a wife, and you fight with your spouse, that's not the way that's not the weapon you're saying. You need to come to the fight, but know that he needs extra equipping. So yeah, this may be a loaded question, and I don't expect you to have all of the answers in the sitting. But if some woman was in that situation and she says, well, my husband doesn't want to fight, or he's not ready to acknowledge that's a problem, aside from her praying into, his heart posture coming to God and ready to open it, are there any other steps I give her?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I would make it a crisis. So there's a book by Dr. Dobson. It's called Love Must Be Tough. And he talked about in the book, if disrespect and disregard goes on too long in a marriage, the one spouse loses all respect for the other spouse. So let's say the husband who's like, this isn't a problem. I'm not listening to you. But yet deep down, he knows he's not doing right by his wife. But he's like, he's reasoned, because those things have reasoning processes that come along with them. And so he continues to be like, well, you're not doing this enough for me, or so he reasons it, and she goes along. She needs to be like, change the locks, or like literally she needs to do intervention. She needs to bring along somebody that she knows loves him and loves her, that will care enough to speak the truth and sit down with them. I mean, we've done that. John and I have sat in with other couples, and John has looked at the young man and said, you're an idiot. This is a beautiful, amazing woman, and you're about ready to blow it. Not just with her, but you're making choices that are going to blow it for the rest of your life, because you're going to get trapped in selfishness, and she has every biblical reason to leave you. So you better count the cost on this. And I mean, John, you need a man who's going to take him and basically in the spirit throw him up against a wall and say, you're an idiot. And this young man was like, oh my gosh, because he kept saying, well, she's doing this, or she belittles me, or, and he was like, no, John was like, there is absolutely no reason you could ever give me that would say that you have the right to violate your marriage covenant. And the guy was like, all right, and John said, I understand all the excuses. So yes, absolutely, you need to bring somebody else in. And, I would highly recommend counselors. I know a lot of times people will go to friends, but when you've gone to your friends, unless you really know where your friends stand, they act weird around you for the rest of your life.
And maybe pick sides even, I'm sure.
Pick sides sometimes, or, the wife talks to the wife and the husband talks to the husband, but they're not all on the same page, or get with a counselor. Or John will come to your house and beat a child.
Next, anytime doing intervention. And one thing I think that might be misdiagnosed with quote unquote being a good Christian wife is the idea of submission and respect, that not being a part of it. Well, I can't say anything, or I can't challenge him because I have to be submissive and respectful. But what I'm hearing you saying,
well, I don't think that.
No, but it's typically out of context, where it's like, okay, well, that means I have to be quiet, or I can't fight for my marriage. I have to just let him lead. Let him lead, pray into him coming into that position.
Truth and love is also part of submission, and actually, when you look at help me, it means someone who stands face to face with you, and at times in an adversarial position where you're like, no. I mean, even look at Abraham with God. He's like, so you're telling me you would kill Sodom and Gomorrah if there was 100 righteous? Okay, no, I won't do it for 100. What about 10 less? I mean, he goes all the way down. The wife has the right to stand toe to toe with her husband and challenge him with truth in love. Mm-hmm. She's, that's you. The different thing is submission means under authority, under assignment. So you have two people, and what marriage is two people committed to bringing the best out in one another. And submission, the way it's been perverted, is like, oh, you do whatever you want and I'll just behave my best. No, we're supposed to bring the best up to each other.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Christian, if my husband says something to me, I'm like, Wow. I just can't believe you would say something like that. That's really disappointing. It's more devastating than him yelling at me, because I see that he loves me up to here, and I did less than what love speaks into me and over me. And I just think too many times we forget we have a covenant committed to growing one another to live more like Jesus, not more like us.